here. Uh, let's talk about the basic constructs of teenage angst and where it comes from. I remember when I was a teenager and I had very many angsty feelings. I wanted to project the best parts of myself, but I didn't want to be too forthcoming of my intentions, because my intentions were usually very naughty. And and it came out once in front of a bunch of people, and my true intentions were known after that, I think. and and there were a lot of dudes that really, I think, respected that. That I held that back a lot. um, there were so many different instances where I think I tried to be someone that I thought I was, because I just to perpetuate a joke most of the time, and that basically turned into people being worried about me most of the time, and that's kind of where all this kind of stems from, I guess. Shoots and ladders. All right, so I realized when I decided to make my own actual, like, advances around women, or not advances, but moreover my like flirtative nature. Not flirtation or any kind of word that actually exists. A word that I made up because it's mostly just playful banter, and so it's not even actually flirting. It's more like I'm trying to get to know a person, because I like the way they look. I like the way they smell. I like the way they do things. I like the way they're like like, yeah. So it's more like I like the ways that they are to me at that certain moment, and I want to see if that moment wants to be something else, and if not, then that's completely and utterly okay with me. I just really think that that pushing an issue is very stupid sometimes, especially though if only people would I think if only people would be honest with themselves sometimes about what their intentions are, about what their intentions might be, and then they'd be honest with other people, I think. And negative human beings, I mean, people are going to stay a certain way because of that. And I don't think that they'll ever change exactly, but their actions will change, and sometimes people will still get the same hints and the same kind of mental cues from what they do, but understanding that isn't quite understanding the fact that sometimes they're done for, you know. Sometimes people are literally, they gave all that stuff up, they gave all those plans up that they were going to do, they gave all those world domination plans up, and then they kind of just wanted to make their own group, and then they decided to make their own stuff, and usually sell their own products. So most of the time I think that people don't realize the facts of the matter, that that covering things up is kind of stupid sometimes, because what it does, it can ruin marketplaces. It can send the wrong message to people, and it can really mess up things for people in the future sometimes, who are trying to be able to do things with themselves. And for the most part, I think, though, that people don't realize that the society itself, as far as America goes, politics and a bunch of different things can mean or say something. And this is just my own personal opinion on the matter. So I'm not saying that it's anyone else's, but my own personal opinion is that our current objective for a lot of things and a lot of people is to project things about dominance and we like guns or blah blah blah, and to just exemplify a certain process to be able to redefine what it is to actually be American. To redefine what it actually means to be American, to understand that those are not the majority of people. And no, I don't own any guns, and nor do I ever plan to. But what people should really understand about me and about what I want to do with myself is I really have fun just kind of going with the flow, but also keeping to a certain regimen. You know, I'm not completely out in the woods, and I'm not completely just amazingly in the city all the time. You know. It's like I'm not always trying to be the dude who like, yeah, I'm gonna go hunt that elk down and we're gonna eat food, and I'm like no, let's go to the supermarket sometimes, because chasing after animals is very tiring, and also other people can do it. So like, why not let them? A lot of times I think that that's where that whole like, oh, people used to do stuff like that with their food. They used to hunt their food down, and that's why they were so fit. Yes, and also that's the reason why they died early on, because they die of heat exhaustion, and most of the time they die of heat exhaustion or radiation poisoning, not realizing that the meat they were cooking was filled with some sort of bacteria that had like mutated or something. And that's where the frontal forehead comes up. They don't realize that that's a specific mutation that allows for the cunningness of certain animals. Eating raw meats usually is probably the thing that kind of like, yeah, meat's completely raw or something like that. Like, I kind of have that whole thing going on with me. I'm kind of like a caveman, but I'm not exactly. So like, I'm mostly Native American on both sides of my family. My mom is Cherokee, and my dad is, I believe, is Apache, or yeah, my dad's Apache. My mom's tribe, I believe she's derivative of Tennessee, and mostly China, and and mostly Chinese, I guess, and my dad is derivative of Apache, which is mostly either Japanese or Korean. So and it's no difference on what people actually think there is, and I'm sure that they want to disassociate themselves with another race to be able to become something more that they believe they are, and I'm sure that I do respect their beliefs as well, but I I will make fun of them if they overstep their bounds. I will, because sometimes people in religion try to over exemplify their facts, and they try to tell people that, oh, everything's going to be terrible and everyone's going to hate it, and it's like no, that's not exactly the case. Most of the time, people are always worried about Armageddon when it comes to religion, and I do believe that that is probably their one actual paranoia that actually went into their books. That is the reason why a lot of people don't trust religion, because they're afraid that they're actually sometimes behind most of the stuff that actually causes a lot of things. And it's not their fault. They didn't do it on purpose. It's just mostly, it has a lot to do with different writers and different people and different subsets and different perspectives as far as things went, and as far as the perspectives went and what they saw and how they saw something. A lot of people believed they were on a different planet back then. They didn't believe they were on the same planet as other people. They believed that they were on a certain thing, and people's beliefs got in the way of a lot of different stuff. Messages, food, shelter, a lot of different stuff back in the old days. And that's kind of what stopped it, was Christians, Muslims, and Jewish faiths embargoing against each other, and they always proved each other infallible, and that's where I think their whole mystery kind of just unravels, because they were just trying to prove each other wrong most of the time. So it's where I think they should stop, and I think they should really look at themselves and understand that no one is fallible in the eyes of any person that they decide is to be their chosen what's the word, their chosen afterlife, I guess. I really don't think that that anyone believes that any of that stuff is real sometimes, but if they do believe it, then I guess it's up to them. They have to understand that I don't know those people. I never knew those people. I'm not old enough to be able to know those people, but I know the derivatives of those people, and I know that they had a lot to do with the bloodlines of Abraham and all those other different people, because of whom they spoke in the Bible is usually the person to which they would actually instill the power or the title of God. And back in those old days, they had a lot of different prophets and a lot of different people who went nameless in the Bible, especially the Christian version, and they didn't really understand that actually had an effect on people sometimes when they were actually that had an effect on people sometimes when there weren't a lot of things to be going. Oh, nice. Set up a trap for me. That was really good. So a lot of times people didn't realize that they were being brought into those battles, whether they liked it or not. Most of the time, whether their beliefs were anything or nothing. And the more they started to believe, the more they started to believe in their God to be able to get them out of a situation, the more they would understand and completely disunderstand or misunderstand a certain situation, or the certain situation in itself, and they wouldn't understand that they signed basically a waiver giving themselves up whenever they actually went into a religion. And they didn't realize that a lot of people really enjoyed stuff. A lot of people really had a great time sometimes, and most of the time it was just for parents to be able to talk to each other. Like, most of the time, people use religion for parents and people to get to know one another and to know exactly who they were, and then sometimes in Jehovah's Witnesses to literally never talk to each other again, or in other religions to commute and commune and basically share their spoils of what they actually have, you know? A lot of times I think that most of the time when people have a common idea in hand, they they tend to act less aggressively towards one another. And that's where I think actually the four founding fathers, or whatever, four founding, whatever you think it is, did. And the reason why they came up with all these ideas was because they wanted people to follow these ideas to rewards, basically. And they wanted the people to know that they were worth something. They were worth fighting for. They were worth, sometimes in some cases, dying for. And not realizing that most of those people, they literally gave their lives. And I literally try to make fun of them as much as I can, because they were everything that is America, and they were everything that is something, and they were the ones that really had it going for them. And if they would have kept moving and kept doing things and kept making things, then the war would have never happened, and people wouldn't have done the things that they did, because a situation kind of escalates sometimes, and people tend to take the worst or see the worst in each other, and that tends to make some sort of agreement between people as far as everything goes, and they nod to that agreement even though that it's certain death. And hence the reason why people actually did a bunch of different illegal and legal duels back in the day, who would literally have disagreements and one person would die over it, and it would make everything more horrible than everyone actually even thought it would, because back then there was hardly any coroner's office. It was mostly just in Washington DC, and that's why most of the time you see them cleaning up absolutely everything. And it hurts to see New Orleans suffer and smell like Parmesan cheese and used gum and a bunch of different other things like that. So throw up a lot of different, like, used hypodermic needles and terrible freaking shit, medical supplies, and people who are homeless just like don't even know what they smell like. They don't even know, because their nose has been numb to it. And everyone needs to realize that it's mostly just that, and it's not the fact that people do die here. It's just sometimes it's not always the thing you think it is. You know, it's not to say that that's that thing. It's just not to say that there's anything going on. It's just sometimes people are terminal and there's absolutely no way to cure them. So they decide to go and hurt someone, and then that person retaliates back when they're on their lawn or something like that. And then that just makes it even worse when the person decides that they're going to try to fight it, I guess, or something like that, and they don't really understand that the fight is over with. They're literally just terminal, and it's hard to tell someone that they're that. It's hard to tell someone that they're going to die or something like that. It's just really hard to tell someone that. But the less you actually tell someone that, the more their willpower kicks in, and their body tends to fight off infections that were literally never even thought about, and it's mostly has to do with the mind and being able to understand the possibilities of something. The positive possibilities of something can make you feel better in placebo form, and people don't realize that a lot of times that's kind of what it is. It's just placebo forms and a lot of different people doing like nothing and really not caring about stuff, to be able to make people who seem to be wanting to be hypochondriacs, and people who are constantly thinking that there's something wrong with them, or that they've been changed forever, or any sort of thing, to be able to understand that, oh, here we go. There we go. I'm good at hip firing. Most of the time, though, I see a difference in what people try to say and what people try to actually enact. But it has a lot to do with the certain frivolities that people allow themselves, you know? Like, it has to do with the things that people constantly deny themselves, and they think that it has something to do with a major threat, or it has something to do with a major thing. And this, you'll see this in other countries, and you'll believe sometimes every word while you're there. And when you're gone, you're like, what was I ever thinking? It's mostly having to do with the fact that people themselves have this kind of cognitive sense, and through suggestion they'll be able to control pretty much anyone. And that has a lot to do with what happened back in the 70s and 60s to a lot of different people. And the reason why is because philosophers are very, very, what's the word, convincing that everything they say is true and right. And that's kind of what I've been actually trying to talk about, is trying to hint at and trying to tell people that philosophers aren't always right. People who tell you things aren't always right. It doesn't mean don't believe what they say, but take everything they say with a grain of salt. They can say whatever they want to say about society and how things are a certain way, but usually what they're seeing is a certain possibility to the future. What they're seeing is a certain possibility of what things could be, and eventually don't realize that sometimes that they can actually even force those events into reality, or force those events into fruition sometimes, or force those events into the future, and then act like it's never going to happen. And then eventually, when they get out of office, they profit from all the guns and all the band-aids that they have, and eventually everyone else is just asked out and has to ask them for money. So that's basically kind of what Sherlock was about. It was like they should realize that not everyone is after everything. Usually they're just after one thing, and they do all this stuff or all these amazing things just to confuse people about what they do and how they do it. And they just went after information, or they just went after a single piece of equipment that they missed the first time, and it's not theirs, so they shouldn't really be getting it. You know, most of the time, whenever you think about information tech and information securement, you're thinking about basic constructs of college, and this is all really kind of known already most of the time, but you just kind of, it's not really known against people who have been constantly pushed around and constantly used for other things and other people's stuff. They're just like, hey, you know what? Instead of going out there and telling everybody exactly how you feel, how about not showing everyone all your cards? How about it's a card game, basically. It's freaking bets, and I know it's bets. I know absolutely that it's bets, and I know people have money riding on it. And it's like how many people can they get to jump on a light post? How many people can they get to? Yeah, it's basically that, and it's just has a lot to do with if they see something as a possibility, they try to make it, and then they run bets on what they can do and how they can do things. Then someone finds out about something and they're like, what? Oh my god, I can make this dude money? Holy shit, I love that dude. It's just like, yeah, that's basically how that works. So awesome. I did not have my gun ready, and because I was talking. And I'm currently drinking water, but because I was talking, and all right. So realizing all that stuff and understanding all that smartiness is just not going to get me anywhere. It's going to help me in the long run. It's going to help me be able to tell people that I'm more than just college educated. I've been studying things since I was about 4 or 5, and I've been studying different concerts, Mozart, Degas, lots of different art, lots of different stuff like that, Beethoven, a lot of different things, and studying the ways they used to do things, because a lot of times they would take notes from what nature actually told them, basically through sounds and different things like that. They would take sounds from nature and literally put it on a piano, and most of the time it had a lot to do with what was going on in society at the time. And people said that they were going to cause the end of days by constantly angering the gods or whatever. They didn't realize everyone was using it as an excuse for literally centuries. Everyone, including Muslims, including every single person on the face of the frickin' planet, was using it as an absolute excuse to be able to not do anything for anyone. And it's the reason why they don't have the things they should have. It's the reason why their society isn't as advanced as it should be sometimes in third world countries and a bunch of different places. And people who can't get to those things are blamed for it and sometimes even massacred because of terrible, terrible people who believe that everyone and everything is at fault for everything. And they should really understand that that's the reason why a lot of people actually go into terrorism, is because they've completely lost their goddamn mind. Or their mind at all. So just realize that, and realize that burnout has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with heat stroke. It has a lot to do with fucked up things. It has a lot to do with drugs. It has a lot to do with people who are dumb. It has a lot to do with things that are dumb. It has a lot to do with people that still are able to make a living. And it has a lot to do with amazing people who do really, really, really dumb stuff. Making those connections isn't easy, and understanding that those connections are actually possible, realizing that that you can make someone feel something even though their brain isn't sending that signal, and that's through numbing and a bunch of different not numbing, and that's from me taking probably a little bit of a leave, the powerful pain reliever, and a leave can make you think that you're numb a little bit, and make you, yeah. But people don't really understand where that stuff actually comes from. They don't get where that stuff actually is, and they don't really get that I kind of found out a very long time ago that they really, really should have made a better time for themselves. They should have, and it would have worked out for them if they had not done the things that they actually tried to do this time. And I just have to tell them that the jig is up. The dance is over. The dance is absolutely over. Like, it's over. It's absolutely over. And they're going to say, oh, well, if I tell you this, and I tell you this, then I tell you this thing, then that means that I didn't do anything at all. And it's like, no, you laundered money for a lot of different people after a war was over, and then that's the reason why you shouldn't have done that, because they were not looking to launder money, they were looking to buy guns. Yeah. And, oh, no, you shouldn't have told those people that you were, a person of interest, because that's the reason why they were looking after you, because they thought you weren't a person of interest. Oh, you shouldn't have done all those things that people said you did, but you didn't do anything, and people just put it on you for no apparent reason, because they think that it's fucking funny to do things that cause inconsistencies in goddamn readouts. Now I have to say something about what's the word? And it's all geostorm, basically. It's all informs people that what happened and how it happened, but it didn't really happen like that. It more happened the geothermal and geological construct of vibrations. It may signify that something is alive, namely our Earth. But it's more having to do with the wind and the water. It has a lot to do with the wind, has a lot to do with the water. Seismic activity can be faked. All right? Remember that, okay? It can be faked all freaking day long. All day long. It can be faked with everything. It can be faked with tremors. It can literally just be some dude shaking a meter. Shit. It could just be a boat being like, okay, I'm going to run into this freaking meter a bunch of times, and then it should cause an earthquake. It's not going to, but they can try. So realize that, and understand that there are people out there that actually do care, and and should realize that that most of the time there are so many things that people really don't get sometimes as far as seismic activity goes, and that's the reason why I think that New Orleans is probably going to be safe for a while. But they should really understand that there was always a looming threat, and the fact of the matter is that our levees are compromised, and that's the reason why I think that sometimes people should understand that like, come and get the food while you can, you know, come and get it while it's hot. Because we might not be here all the day, you know, we might not be here all the time. So just, it's a marketing ploy for people to come here. But hey, we might not be here when, all right. Come here again, because I'm not going to say anything about anything like that. But our levees, they're still compromised. They're still It's probably the one thing that no one cut any corners on, because they knew exactly what it was. But you never know, all right? There could be a huge tidal wave, like a movie tidal wave. Completely CGI, but CGI. And also CGI. So, just remember that part. And then also, we're totally drowning. We're in humidity, and oh, it's so bad. People shouldn't move here at all. No, never. Why would they want to move to a place that stays cool in the summer? Why would they ever want to do that? Because, I mean, why would they do that? Why would they ever want to move to a place that stays cool in the summer and also gets really nice and chill in the winter? Like, why would they ever want to do that? I have my air conditioner on, but you know what? I can go outside. There's a nice breeze. There's awesome stuff. I could walk around if I wanted to. Amazing stuff. Great stuff. Great times. Why would they ever want to move to a place that's cool in the summer, you know? Why? Why would they ever want to move here? I don't know. I don't know, because I really don't know, you know? As far as everything goes, I think people should really realize that that's what the actual river does for us. And the reason why people stay near the river, because it's usually cooler. There's a wind that stays with it, and it usually blows through your hair, and you're like, oh gosh, such a good wind. And when you're riding in your car, you're just like, wow, why is it not that hot right now? It's May. Jeez, man. Oh, woo, gosh. And then you get to go to a chiropractor, and and you get to eat crawfish. Or crayfish for people who aren't from here. But hey, you know, I'm making it really enticing, but that's the reason why I stay most of the time, because because nobody can compare as far as food goes, and if those people leave, I'm following them. Oh man. Whew. And for cereal, so for seriousness, be yourself. You are your own one-person bomb squad. You can defuse situations that happen. You can defuse situations that happen. But if they're not happening, okay? If they're not happening at all right? If they're not happening whatsoever, I farted, then maybe you should seek therapy. All right? Just maybe, or even make your own therapy if you can't afford it. All right? And if you can, seek it and want it, because it'll make you so much better at everything. All right? It'll make you better at video games. It'll make you better at reading. It'll make you better at stuff you thought was never possible. It'll make you better, and it'll make you stop doing all those things with your hands. It'll make you stop doing all those wavy things in the car sometimes. And you're like, I just want to feel the wind. Why? Because your skin and your muscles and your nerves are being constrained by the stress in your brain. All you have to do is let out some of that, a little bit of that stuff, and you'll be so much more stress-free in life. But also, if you're a terrorist and that stuff doesn't work, because you're probably in a desert somewhere. Or in a jungle and you have to run from tigers. Darn. Or in a very cold place that is very cold and you always have to keep your body warm, so there's not a lot of things you can do there. Or you're in a big building and you don't know what to do with your hands.